And to discuss last night's election results, we're joined by Gerard Filitti, political strategist and attorney. We also have with us Robin Biro, Democratic strategist and former Obama regional campaign director. Thank you both so much for being here. Robin, I want to start with you because Democrats saw a sweep of wins last night, especially in Virginia and New Jersey, where Democrats won by double digits. How significant were those wins?
I think, Tiffany, that it has more to do with the timing, honestly. It is very significant for Democrats, but it has a lot more to do with timing. I actually don't, for once, disagree with President Trump. It had a lot to do with the government shutdown. People are feeling the hurt, and they're really not buying the Republican narrative that although they control the House, the Senate, and the executive, this is the Democrats' fault exclusively. We do need to find some way to come together and get a budget passed so that people can get back to work and people can get the full amount of their SNAP benefits, things like that. But I think last night was a referendum on some of the games that we're seeing being played in Congress right now, Tiffany.
And Gerard, on that note, what do the losses mean for Republicans? What lessons could be learned for 2026 potentially?
The lessons to be learned are similar to the lessons that we saw in 2024, which the Democrats carry through in this election. The message is it's the economy. And we saw tight discipline from the Democrats regarding whether it was Virginia, New Jersey, or even Mamdani, New York City. They were focusing on cost of living, on economic issues, on taxes, on ways to make families be able to afford more. And that carried them over the threshold. I think the message for Republicans is they need to go back to basics. It's not a culture war issue. It's not about social issues. It is about the economy. And Trump needs to do a better job of carrying that message himself, because we saw the consequences of the shutdown playing out, I think, in Virginia and to some extent in New Jersey in this election.
And Robin, New York City saw a historic turnout in its mayoral election. What issues do you think motivated New Yorkers to come out in droves?
There are a number of things. Of course, number one, in a municipal election is always crime prevention. I'm dealing with that right here in my city in Atlanta. That's what our mayor ran on because of a crime epidemic. Mamdani had a different approach. I think people appreciate someone thinking out of the box. He had an approach about bringing 8,000 public safety officers that don't have police power but are there to help people and for the greater good, whereas his opponents they each wanted to bring on somewhere between 5,000 to 7,000 additional police force, if somehow their message didn't quite resonate with the voters. So I think voters in New York City were looking for maybe a different approach to how they handled this. I just want to point out that Mamdani's acceptance speech was remarkable. I believe it was 32 minutes long, and it met the moment. It sort of answered some of the criticism that I myself have been giving him. So let's see how this goes.
And Gerard, what did you make of what we saw in New York, and what motivated New Yorkers to go out and vote?
I think we saw a dynamic, youthful candidate engaging the younger demographic and especially first-time voters who came out in droves for Mamdani. I think he did a less good job convincing more establishment Democrats that his agenda items would actually be able to be implemented. But the youthful enthusiasm and people wanting change, people wanting to see something different. New York, for many people, feels the same as it did during the pandemic, only slightly coming back to life a little bit with many of the same problems. And Mamdani offered something completely new and different, and that's something that the younger people, first-time voters particularly, were energized by, and they came out to vote in droves.
And Robin, does Mamdani's win signify a larger change in direction within the Democratic Party?
I'm going to be honest, I hope not, but I think that it probably will. I believe that it will be used as a template. Because we lost the general election, every time we do as Democrats, we tend to say the problem was that we weren't left enough. And Mamdani's win last night, I think, is going to be a referendum that democratic socialism is something that other candidates might need to be considering having a closer look at. President Obama, as you know, yesterday said that, while he didn't endorse Mamdani, he was there to offer support, just like my colleague here said. He's kind of looking a little old school right now, I would say. So I would just caution candidates across the country to, be wary of socialism. It might be what's popular, like my colleague here said, with the emerging electorate. But I'm not really sure that's going to be the way to win elections, say in places like Georgia, the state I'm speaking to you from now, Tiffany.
And Gerard, expanding on that, what does the future of the Democratic Party look like then?
I think there still needs to be an identity that's determined of how the party will move forward cohesively in the midterm elections next year and beyond. You will see more candidates like Mamdani, but they will be in cities like Portland or Seattle, perhaps even in Chicago. They are not going to be so much or readily electable in the South or in states that are more heavily Republican. And that's an issue for Democrats, too, because a lot of Democrats are not ready to embrace this brand of radicalism, of socialism. They do want to see more progress made in terms of getting Democratic values, Democratic Party values in line and legislation that favors them, but not the radicalism that comes with some of these candidates. So I think the Democratic Party has a sort of an identity crisis that it will grapple with going into the midterms next year.
And Robin, on the other side of the nation, voters in California approved a proposal to redraw the state's congressional district map. Now, that is part of a larger national redistricting battle. What impact could this have on the midterms next year?
It's significant, just because of the congressional math here. And that's all in response to what Republicans did in the state of Texas, gerrymandering. I just want to point out that Princeton Political Science Department did an analysis and said that Republicans, by and large, gerrymander about 70% of the time, and Democrats about 30% or so. So, it's a problem. And I think Democrats kind of are calling their bluff at it, saying, look, if you're going to do this, we're going to also do this. And that's what Governor Gavin Newsom did. And he called on other governors to do the same. I really don't like it, though. I've got to be honest with you, Tiffany. I really hate it. I think it's, in the end of the day, it's the voters who suffer, because government should always be representative of the people that it serves. And when you gerrymander a district that heavily, it defeats that purpose, that stated purpose.
And Gerard, your thoughts on gerrymandering and how we'll see that play out in the midterms?
Well, I think we'll definitely see a race to gerrymander now, not just Texas and California, but Virginia has, the Democrats have the House, both houses. They have the governorship. They will definitely gerrymander there. We will see this in Florida. We will see this, or already seeing this in Indiana, perhaps Ohio. We will see this across the board. And this just adds complexity to a voting system. Instead of the parties selecting the best candidate that appeals most to the people, they're playing these partisan games of trying to align districts. And ultimately, the only people who suffer are all of the American voters, because they have fewer choices, not more.
Well, on that note, Gerard Filitti and Robin Biro, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.